what part of the year are we going to find out?
Well, of course, the independent board will manage that process, but I think on the oil and gas, I think it's scheduled to close the end of April. April 28th, thank you. 2 days before your taxes are due, make sure you get that in. And then on the offshore wind is, we're still working on that process, but I would still be hopeful it would be this year.
Premier, do you have any interest in buying back Nova Scotia Power to make it a public entity again?
Like that's the discussions around what that would cost in this environment are, I'm sure it would be a pretty big number. I'm most interested in making sure that there is competition to Nova Scotia Power. I'm most interested in making sure there's competitive rates from Nova Scotia Power. I'm most interested in just holding them to account on the service that they provide. But I think we've already seen, the first competition to Nova Scotia Power has been announced. That power will hopefully start to flow to customers towards the end of the year or early next year. So that's an important step in creating a competitive environment. I'm most interested in that. Is
re-nationalizing the utility something that your department has explored?
I don't know that I haven't seen any analysis, certainly not since I've been there as minister. I don't know if it's something historically that's been looked at. I think in part of my submission to the board's process, we asked for kind of a full review of the utility. But my focus is on making sure the utility functions in a way that is fair to Nova Scotians, while also creating alternatives to that utility.
Should the board undertake that review? Would you like them to explore the possibility of?
No, I'm most interested in creating competition for Nova Scotia Power and making a fair environment.
Sorry, could we even afford that realistically?
I doubt it. I haven't done the analysis, but we have a significant debt load. We have a significant deficit this year already. So any type of move on in that direction something else would have to give. And as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, it's very hard when anything has to give.
You had a question this morning about analysis of the economic impacts of budget cuts. Is that work that the government does?
The Department of Finance is always, there's a number of economists over there that are always doing that type of analysis. And certainly on the budget process in general, even on budget day, there's budget lockup. Those department staff are available to people to answer questions. So look, the economists are always looking at opportunities and, opportunity costs, I guess. But we have a limited resource. And so, we only have so much. Government can only afford to do so much. So we've made decisions to try to, make sure that we continue to make sure healthcare is available to people. And we've made incredible progress. That doctor's list is pointed to nationally as something to be proud of. 7% people are accessing care. Some of the surgery wait lists that the minister talked about. So all these things, look, governing is about making decisions, and every single one of them has a ramification.
Have you seen any projections on what economic impact those cuts will have?
Well, look, we know that investments in the cultural sector have, economic impact. We went through that with the film tax credit. That's why we reinstated all that stuff. And I think our film industry has done quite well in the last few years because of us reinstating some of those cuts that a prior government made. So we know there's an economic impact, but we also know we have to provide health care. We also know we have to support seniors. We also know we have to support people with disabilities. So all these things are they're all decision points that all have an impact. They're not easy.
But do you know the extent of the impact? Was there an analysis done?
Yeah, the Department of Finance might have it. It's not something that I looked at. I'm focused on, if you want to know what I'm focused on, making sure Nova Scotians have access to healthcare, making sure that our seniors are supported, making sure our education system is working for kids. Those are the main priorities of government.
And generating revenue too, right? You talk about that, but I guess the question from opposition is, what about the revenue that the arts and culture sector is bringing? They reference Statistics Canada number that says it generates $2 billion in GDP. Are you concerned that maybe with some of these cuts, we're impacting a revenue source here that's ready and able to generate?
I guess if I to speak to that, I'd say we're making significant investments in the sector. We're investing as much as we can in the sector. $66 million is not insignificant. It is a significant investment. And particularly if we think about the museums, I hear that's something that is discussed. We had 28 museums we were provincially kind of running and funding completely. That'll still be 16. Plus 65 other community museums that we'll continue to support. And it's difficult on the 12 that will close. But when you look at the visitors to Nova Scotia museums, of 500,000 visitors to Nova Scotia museums last year, and the 12 that were closed, their total visitor count, less than 3% of all visitors. So we're trying to make decisions so then we can focus on those 16 plus the 65 that are generating 97% of the visitors, right? So these are all, they're difficult. Like there's no question, right? Do I wish we could do more? Of course. I always want to do more for Nova Scotians. That's why we're focused on, as you said, on the revenue generation, get the energy sector going, get the natural resources going, continue to promote for the defense investment. So there's incredible opportunities for us. Right now, our province, as is every other province. Look at the deficits in Quebec and Ontario and BC. Look at the federal government. Every other province is making similar decisions, and nobody wants to be talking about what to cut and what not to cut. We all want to be talking about how do we grow and do more and rise, let all boats rise. So we're continuing to focus on that, but it's definitely a challenging time.
Premier, has there been any instance while you've been Premier where you've had any kind of direct contact with a member of the judiciary about seeking advice or receiving advice from them about any type of matters?
No, I certainly know judges. I've talked to judges, lawyers, doctors, Nova Scotians. Never about an active case, never about a potential case, never, obviously not try to talk about a case they're presiding over. No, none of that stuff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Premier.
Thank you.